Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast, brought to you in partnership with FootJoy. I am Tom Mills, and today I'm joined by Sam Williams. Sam, welcome.
Tom, thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure.
First podcast from the new office.
This is the start of a new era, I'd say, Samuel.
You're way excited about this.
Well, it's just nice to have somewhere that's not in our house, isn't it? So we've got the office set up.
I think that the bit here with the office, though, is it's not within your house, but it is an annex of your house, whereas it is a 35-minute drive
it's
from
a
mine.
shed. Yeah. It's a shed that we're in. But it's a nice shed. And it is, all of about 30-second walk from my house. But it's no longer in my house, which is lovely. And we've got a couple of desks set up in here. We've got a putting station, dog bed for little Frank, who's just sat beneath us. That's my dog.
It's nice and snug, isn't it?
Yeah, we've done a few bits. We've added carpet and put out a nice big TV so we can watch the golf, which is on right now. Watching the rerun of Dunlap, who I'm sure we'll touch on today.
Yeah, it's lovely. I think it's nice. It's it's like quite a grown-up working space.
What do you want to do to it?
I'd like to put lots of weird and wacky stuff on the walls.
Well, Ross Horseman's trophy, the jacked up legend that is Ross Horseman. He keeps texting me, so chuffed that we say he's jacked. So the mega hench Ross Horseman, who made the trophy, the Cookie Jar trophy, out of the all-woodly locker room wood, that trophy needs to go up in here.
Can we put like a little spotlight above it, which is always on? You know, like a downlighter.
Yeah, I think we could do that.
We're going to get some cool FootJoy stuff, and we've got them raiding the archives for some nice sort of 1980s pro shop prints.
Well, we found some great FootJoy retro head covers. I think the driver head cover shows you how interesting modern driver tech changes. The driver head cover doesn't fit my driver.
So no, I'm not surprised remotely. Does it fit the 3-wood? Even that would feel like
3-wood's good. So we use the 3 because I bought a set which is 1, 3, and 5. Someone sold it to me on eBay, and the driver head cover was a boxing glove, which for anyone FootJoy, I don't know why that was a good idea, but they're
I think
cool.
It's a great idea.
They're cool, retro, fluffy sort of FootJoy head covers, and I use the 3-wood. I think you use the 5-wood. Is that right?
That's right. But I put the 5-wood. I don't have a 5-wood. I have like a
4.5
slightly
wood.
lofty 3-wood. But when I pull the 5-wood head cover off and then I hit it marginally further than a 5-wood, it feels like it's that little bit more impressive,
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big
I actually think
5-wood.
though. I think it's one of the all-world moves when see someone you pull out and say, "What are you hitting?" and see 4-wood. I think 4-wood and 6-wood.
I've never seen a 6-wood, but a 4-wood's a little bit more impressive.
It's just one of those things you just feel like an absolute mega monster. Saying it just feels like you really dialed into your game.
I think so. We used to be. I think 4-wood was a bit more common years ago.
Was it?
I think so. But yeah, so we're going to get some lovely little stuff on the walls. A nice little bit of an area outside, possibly barbecue friendly.
Got a barbecue area.
A lot of timber. Would that be a possible fire risk?
Well,
we'll have to do a health and safety.
It hasn't had any lacquer on it, so the flammability is low, I would have thought. But we've got a coffee station.
Is that how it works? What? So
I think lacquer is like very flammable. Obviously, wood is flammable, but I think the varnish and stuff is really flammable. I mean, that was a rubbish way of saying I really need to look after that wood a bit better. But
yeah, well, anyway, we'll do the full health and safety checklist on it. But we
got the Nespresso machine back. That was from the old biscuit mill many moons ago.
Yep.
And I was just a bit disappointed that we both put a capsule in and mine has come out smaller.
No, if they're both the green ones, they're...
No, I went for a blue one.
Oh, yeah, they're 150 mils, I did say. So the Costa Rica's a 150 mil.
I think it's a bit less harsh than the blue, though. We shouldn't be drinking coffee at this hour of the day anyway.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Well, when we went travelling recently, Ryan said to us that you're not allowed to drink coffee within the first hour of waking up for your circadian rhythm, and you're not allowed to drink coffee after 12 because you won't sleep, which really knackers my coffee drinking because you've only got like a 4-hour window to nail as many as you can.
I don't know. I mean, I think we've been a little slow on pods to start the year, but some of that is we are building for some really good podcasts, which will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. The PGA show, which we will sadly not be at in Orlando next week, will as Ryan's out there, so we're going to need to record that when he gets back. I really hope the tour podcast we can get some of Ryan's absolutely absurd takes in there. He really sounds like a maniac when he goes for it on some of these things. Like you say, coffee consumption, like that's an hour and a half in of itself with Ryan.
Yeah, well, anything's an hour in itself with Ryan Nerds, managing director of the Addington. He has promised to come on the podcast and talk about the Addington at some point, but he says he needs to prepare, which puts the fear of
I think he thinks it'll be like a 10-part, sort of every episode will be 1 hour in length. But yeah, so we're building for some quite exciting stuff. We're doing.
What's in the pipeline? Just
well, we're obviously going to do tour diaries from our time in the US, but we've also got a number of guest course diaries from some of these extremely storied golf clubs that we visited. Now, I'm hoping I can talk you into making a few films. I'd like to think that would be doable anyway. And just trying to do a few pieces about new course builds, because there's so many new courses, particularly private developments, that are commanding huge sort of, big name architects, big construction fees. I think it'd be quite interesting to do a few films.
I think we'll be able to get a couple out. So we went to some places where filming probably wasn't the ticket, because we were just kind of guests there and just paying green fees and just throwing a drone up or getting the films out. And the caddies I thought was quite, not restrictive, but you don't want, the places we visited you had to have a caddy, and you don't want a caddy to carry a camera and then filming with them around. It just gets a bit confusing, even though we did do that in County Down, I suppose. But
we've got a few bits and pieces.
But we do have a few bits. I think we can get out some couple of films out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, very exciting. And we've had a really interesting week with regard to golf news.
And apparently there's more that's going to come this week. So I've heard, just on the grapevine, there's a bit more announcements that they're timing in with the PGA show. I don't know what. Feels like it's been
that feels like you know a little bit. What do you know?
No, I just heard that. I think that was...
Who's announcing what?
Well, I just think there's a bit more to come.
From who?
I don't know.
People.
It's just more news.
Just people.
The great thing is with a sentence like that is anything in the golf news now this week, it's like, yeah, it's validated that statement.
Sam knew about that, yeah.
I knew that was coming. Well, I don't know. I think it feels like the PGA show is quite big this year, as it always is, and there is some speculation that there'll be some more announcements. Things like, piggybacking on from our conversation last time about Tiger. With,
that news that coming out was odd, because I had heard there was rumours going around that Tiger and Nike were splitting, and that TW brand was then part of Tiger's thing, and then you get this new logo that's come out that's been put
Sunday
through.
Red. The
Sunday Red with the Tiger with 15 lines. Each line indicates a major or something like that.
Yeah.
So really interesting to see, what.
I think the word on the street is it might be some new collab, sort of clothing line. But anyway.
I don't think it's going to be as big as people are, going on about. Really, I think it's just going to be something small.
It's Tiger, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Tiger.
If it's Tiger, it's news. It doesn't really matter what it is. The big news, of course, Nick Dunlap. Which, if I'm honest, I didn't watch the conclusion of the American Express. Our listeners will not be surprised by that. I think dawned on me today the significance of that.
It's huge.
So just fill us in, Tom.
Well, it was interesting seeing Dunlap at the Walker Cup, walking around and see him, and I suppose this is more of an indication of how good they all are, but it certainly wasn't screaming out at me like, Christ, this kid is the next super huge megastar. Certainly since you had the Gordon Sargent there was pretty much taking all the news. Dunlap obviously just won the US Am, so he was good. Clearly he was good. But, I mean, what that gets him now in terms of exemptions, it's nuts. It's absolutely bonkers in terms of he's got majors for days. He's got the best part of, 3, 4?
I think he can play. He's got full status through to the end of 2026.
Yeah, so 3 years.
And he can turn pro at any point in time. So it'll be quite interesting to see what he does. Obviously, winning the American Express, an amateur has not won a PGA event since 1991. Phil. Now, Shane did win the Irish Open as an amateur, and I can't quite get to the bottom on Google in an hour or so, really, of how many amateurs have won on the European Tour. But there will clearly be some. But there's no getting away from the fact this is hyper rare.
I wonder,
But before we go any further, he's also the youngest person to win on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I think
Since
second youngest or something.
Or like 1910 or something stupid. I saw in.
It's like 20 years and 60 days or something like that, isn't it?
But it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's actually. I suppose maybe that's because so many of the players that come through on the PGA Tour are kind of ex-collegiate, whereas he's, still at Alabama.
Yeah.
But it's
there was
an
that Justin
unbelievable
Thomas
accomplishment.
quote, wasn't there? There was someone, he's like, I think people saw it as a slide. I mean, JT's a really sound guy. I've seen sound, never met him, but when he was like, oh yeah, I thought I played really well till some college kid came out and shot 60.
Yeah.
And he was like, and half of Twitter was saying he was a prick, and half of Twitter said, no, he's actually paying him a compliment. He's saying I played really well, and this college kid's come out and absolutely nailed it. But it's going to be really interesting to see what he does. I wonder whether, so if you go back to 91 and Phil winning as an amateur, I haven't looked it up, but I imagine the purse for that week wasn't $8.5 million, So Bezaden Howe came in second and swept 1.5 million because he takes the winner's purse because obviously Dunlap can't take any cash for winning, although the NIL, he can take money somehow, but it's not through purses. Do you think he'd be annoyed, or do you think he's just thinking, I'm going to earn plenty of money in my career?
I don't think it makes any difference. I think he's chuffed to bits. His stock has gone so high now because the golf media world is awash with people saying there are only two people, who have won the US Amateur and the US Junior Am, Tiger Woods and him. He's the first person to go in donkey's years to go and win an event as an amateur. All of these comparisons are starting to be drawn. It is strange because, like you say, at the Walker Cup, it felt like the big name was Gordon Sargent. And I would say, observationally, 60, 70, 80% of the people were following that group. Like, that was how much focus was on him.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, not on Nick Dunlap, despite winning the USAM. Don't forget the guy he beat in the final, Sam Bennett. He was contending pretty hard in the Masters 2023. Yeah. So, I think the danger is it all gets sort of swept up in a lot of, heavy rhetoric about the fact this guy's now going to go on and win 10 major championships and he's going to be an all-timer. There's so much sand left to shift for him. But it's an unbelievable start. Like, there's no getting away from it. It's
so easy to say in hindsight, so I'm going to say it. But it was just a matter of time because these kids are coming out of college now, the college scene. People were saying before the Walker Cup that Gordon Sargent was a future world number one, no doubt. And you watch him and, he had it all.
Cruising in the 190s.
Yeah, he had it all. Like, he absolutely crunched the golf ball. He had great putting. Like, I remember when I watched Gordon Sargent around St Andrews, I was more impressed by his putting than anything. He was just really, really sound from like 8 feet, 10 feet. They were just back of the hole. And he was so poised and everything about it. And like I said, thinking back, Dunlap was there, but all my focus pretty much was on Sargent, pretty much because he crunches the golf ball. But they, people like Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, they're coming out of college, hitting the ground running, which didn't happen like 10, 15 years ago. And now they're coming out. And I suppose it was a matter of time when the good college players, the good collegiate players are getting the invites, sponsors and exemptions, and getting to play on these. It was just a matter of time before someone did well in it. To win is just spectacular, isn't it? And the stones to come down the stretch. And I mean, you could be really brutal and say he shot 60 on the Saturday and 70 on the Sunday, and was he choking? But he finished it out, didn't he? But par on 17 with that.
Yeah, he sort of.
Like
I think it's been referred to as a flare in the reports, but I think it's more accurately described as a socket on the course when it's you or me on 7 or wherever it was. That was probably a bit of a sort of back down to earth with a bump moment. But yeah, to dig in and do that down a pretty tough closing stretch. I think it's a bit of a weird event though. Like, the scores are obscene. So I think Nick Dunlap's score there sets a new record for that event as well.
Well, Justin Thomas was talking about it on like Friday, I think, saying he wanted to get to 30. That was the number. And it's so stupid.
I don't think that's very entertaining. I do think it's This does not take anything away from
back
him.
on that.
Yeah,
I don't think it's not entertaining, and I can understand why you would say it, and possibly I agree with you. However, if the par was 70 as opposed to 72, you're suddenly down to 8 shots less, which is a much more normal PGA Tour winning score, around about 22, 21, 22. If the par is 69, it's suddenly like it's not necessarily. I can see why people would be annoyed by a number being 30 under, wherever, but it's more of respect of the course is clearly not a par 72.
It's less the number. I think it's just it's just consistent. Yeah, it's played obviously at the 3 different courses, and I should add, but I don't think I don't think it sets up as an incredible challenge. It doesn't seem to test a rounded, different number of aspects of people's games. I think it is a massive departure from a major championship setup or whatever, or a national open. But it makes no difference. And I'd argue it's probably even tougher to keep throwing birdies at the card when you're up against it. So, would he have put himself in that position if he was playing a US Open at Oakman? I don't know. It's crystal ball stuff. But
when you watch it, though, I mean, sorry,
it is a bit of a driver and wedge fest, though.
Getting it back to us, seeing that burnt Bermuda again is just brings back great memories.
Yeah, it's quite something, isn't it? It's all. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it will be interesting to see. Now, you mentioned the NIL, which I'd heard nothing about before we went to the US. But this is basically
this is pre Walker Cup, because that's how Sargent was getting his dough in the Walker Cup.
But I wasn't close to it, is what I mean.
Okay.
So what is NIL, and why is this a factor for collegiate players?
It's essentially, I mean, it goes across all sports, not just golf, but it's name, image, likeness. It's a way of, I suppose, how it started was a way of stopping something like in collegiate football, Madden, the football game, using college players and not getting any money for it, essentially. I believe that's kind of the gist of how it started, that they shouldn't, if people are going to use their name, their image or their likeness and profit off it, then...
So it's like a central fund, or is it a fund held by the different colleges based on their players?
Pass on that. I mean, I believe they get paid directly, or they certainly get paid.
Really? So it just goes in and just gets funded to them directly?
Well, it was
because I thought the NIL pot was or the NIL pot was what was paying collegiate footballers $200,000-$300,000 a week or whatever. Some of these people are on.
I was
it's mental money.
I was chatting to a chap in when we were out in America, and he said someone on his block, was a pretty good high school quarterback and was going to a run of the mill. He was like a good quarterback, and he's going to not a top D1 football college, but was going to a decent one, and he was going to be on $250,000 a year to do that.
It's
I mean,
bonkers. And is that would be would be NIL funding that?
I imagine that's how they get around it, the NIL, yeah. And it essentially allows people like FootJoy or Titleist or whoever, TaylorMade, doesn't really matter, to capture people a bit earlier, I suppose, and say, well, we'll get you on board, we'll give you sponsorship for this, and this, and just kind of get them in the ecosystem a bit earlier. But it's certainly...
Well, I suppose that makes the decision about going pro.
Yeah, Nick Dunlap amateur isn't the same as Gene Littler amateur when Gene Littler won, They're very, very different beasts. I imagine Gene Littler was going out on the sauce every night and loving life, as opposed to these guys are professional in all but name. So
yeah, they are. I mean, they are really tour pros, aren't they? At the end of the day, but I mean, they at that age, without all the sort of scars of playing high level competitive golf for the length of time of the people he's playing against, like Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, it is remarkable. Question: Sinister in the rounds. No surprise. Will an amateur win a major championship? And if not, or if so, is there a step up to winning on that stage versus winning on a pretty healthy PGA Tour event?
I mean, I suppose if you looked at it from a statistical point of view, they've probably got a better chance of winning a major because there's more amateurs in majors.
Because I don't know how many amateurs are getting sponsors or exemptions.
You never see amateurs do really well in majors. The USAM,
I don't know.
British Am, they get invites to say the Masters and the Open, and there's quite a few amateurs in the field at the Open. There must be at least 6, 7, 8,
quite a few.
Maybe. You don't get that many amateurs in a PGA Tour event. So what he's done, I suppose, in that respect, is even more impressive. But
I would
don't
say
know.
volumetrically, because they're smaller fields in the major championships.
The Masters would be the one, wouldn't it? It's a small field and
there's quite a few.
high volume of amateurs, but I'd love to see it. I mean,
but you look at it, Sam
brilliant,
Bennett
wouldn't it?
was close. I'd love to sort of brush up on exactly. I think it was he in the final group?
Who?
Sam Bennett at Augusta.
Augusta. I don't know.
Lamprecht, Hoylake
Did pretty well for one round, I think.
Yeah, really well for one round.
Yeah, and it's not like these guys can't put 4 rounds together. They absolutely can. And I don't know whether, I mean, Dunlap doing it across 4 rounds there and getting it over the line in a pretty intimidating final group with Justin Thomas, and I think he played with Sam Burns, didn't he, in the final group as a 3-ball. Is that different pressure altogether than playing down the Masters on a Sunday? You're asking the wrong person. I can't break 75, so this is you're asking them. I mean, the pressure I feel when I come down with a score in the hand is pretty intense. I don't know how these guys feel, but
yeah, I mean, either way, impressive going. It will be really interesting
what do you
to
think?
see.
Do you think an amateur will win a major?
No,
you don't think it's?
I think the pressure's clearly so much higher.
But they are so much better.
Yeah, well, okay. So do I think one will win? No. Can an amateur ever win it? Yeah, I mean, I suppose no, but never say never would be the way I'd put it. Right now, it would feel beyond possible that if you look at the stats for major championship winners outside of things like the world top 20 or the world top 30, it's pretty slim. Extend that out to people who are, not playing frequently on the PGA Tour at the top level and contending there, it starts to get really slim and over 4 rounds in that level of pressure. That said, clearly we are seeing a generation of players coming through right now who are younger, fitter and faster, and maybe, you look at players like Gordon Sargent, you've got people who are a little bit more athletic, and that gives them a big leg up. I don't know.
Just pivoting slightly on it's kind of the same topic, but different topic. Lang has said it's going to be his last Masters.
Yeah.
That's sad. Because in the days of seeing Lang on the top 10 in the Masters,
he was there recently as well.
And he is he's not quite in the same mould as like the Dunlaps. He's not absolutely.
I would love to see him. I'd love to just follow him around somewhere and just watch what he does.
Yeah,
I would absolutely love to watch how he just picks a course apart. His ability to compete over a sustained period of time is absolutely obscene. He's made more money on that Champions Tour than I think most players have won on a PGA Tour.
Most players will ever
win
in their life. Yeah,
it is mental, and he's so competitive and he's fit. He's almost like. He's like the great version of Gary Player. It's like he's doing everything Gary Player's doing but to protect his own longevity without going on about it on and on and on and holding clubs up with 2 fingers or whatever Player does around places.
That is quite an impressive skill, though.
Yeah,
I tried it.
No,
it's really hard.
No, I think it's. I mean, he must get bored of doing that. The number of people I know that are bumped
himself that often.
I think he was at Hoylake and he came up to them and showed them or something. I know so many people that have had Gary.
He was at Hoylake. I spoke to him at Hoylake.
Did you?
Yeah, I've got a picture with him on my.
Yeah, you were over on 10 or 11. This is where I've heard the story.
Yeah, he didn't do the thing. He had a picture with us and he pretended to hand over his wallet, which was quite nice. I think it started in quite an offensive way. Actually, I think he thought we were trying to push in front of him because we'd finished early and then we were like walking down 6 or 7 to go back to the sheds, the greenkeeper sheds, and I think he said, "Where are you going?" I don't know if he was just being polite or inquisitive or what. And
I think South Africans are quite intimidating. Just
had a chat with him
from the outset,
and then we said, "I can't have a picture," and he was nice enough. I think he was, but yeah, it would be sad to see no more Langer at the Masters.
And another couple of notables, obviously Latin America Championship, like a series stroke play event, wasn't it? I mean, a bit different to a sort of normal amateur championship in as much as it's not match
well, it's
play
because he gets his exemption, doesn't it?
It's teed up. It gives you pretty much all the starts again.
It's definitely a major. It might be more than one major. I don't know. I shouldn't be more learned on it. But
interesting. Lydia Ko's win gets her 1 point away from Hall of Fame status. I didn't know Hall of Fame in the LPGA is a point-based system. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. That was
nice.
That was one of my takeaways from that. And obviously Rory in Dubai.
Yeah.
He seems to. I was surprised that he'd only won that 4 times. Other news, a bit more travel. January's a great month for us at the moment. We seem to be doing a bit of travelling. We're off to Ireland this weekend, an East Coast swing. You're going to go to Portmarnock for the very first time. I feel like I might have built Portmarnock up quite a bit to you.
Yeah, I've kind of passed over all my tour responsibilities to you. I don't even know where we're going or what we're doing. I know that I'm doing a bit of work over there.
We're going to do a couple of days at Portmarnock, which very much looking forward to going back there. I went there in May 2022, so I haven't been back since.
So yeah, we're doing Portmarnock and a few others while we're out there and trying to see a few different places we've not seen before. It feels like January's been pretty hectic. I obviously just got back from skiing, so I just
can't go in.
Of course you can. So I've done obviously America and then skiing, and now we're going to Ireland at the end of the week. February's, I mean, it's just jar life. I'm just busy. I'll have to do some stuff with
January has been a ridiculously busy month, which I feel like we've got a little behind the curveball on podcasts.
February, it dies down a little bit.
Well, and also we're building podcast content up for Feb. I do think when you do this, the feast and famine of things is definitely like a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you not feel that?
Yeah.
Like we've had periods where you're like, God, we've got so many podcasts in the chamber here. I do not know how we're going to get these all out. And then you can have periods where it's like, God, this has come from nowhere. And you're thinking, good Lord. Like, you know, you just have to sort of like managing the pipeline and having some discipline to doing it. Like I think the goal this year from now forth is to kind of stick to Tuesday release, right?
Tuesday release, 5 a.m. Get up at 5 a.m. for first listen.
Set your alarm.
Why do they go out at 5 a.m. just incidentally?
No, just put them at 5 a.m. Then people they're there, that aren't they? When people wake up and want to listen to something in the morning.
So yeah, the goal is Tuesday release, 5 a.m. Whether we'll stick to that, I mean, it's a good New Year's resolution. So whether we can stick to it or not, I don't know.
And you're going for a lesson tomorrow.
And I'm going for a lesson tomorrow.
Do you have any idea what you're going to ask for, or what you want to achieve? You're obsessed with club path and face control.
Well, I've seen a few different people.
You've hopped around so much.
Full disclosure, I was seeing Zane Scotland for a bit. Went down to, but his place is so far away. It's down in Leatherhead, and I can't just. I'd quite like to see someone checking me up, if that makes sense, and see the swing and see them if I feel like something's going wrong, and to get down to see him.
It's tough.
It's 2 and a bit hours, and he's busy. You know what they're doing is.
He's got better players on his books.
Yeah, they've got some serious players. So he was very polite in agreeing to look at it, and he gave me some great drills, but I just slip out of it, and I don't practice it enough, which is my own fault because I'm an idiot. But I come from a rugby background where I trained 5 days a week and played 1 day a week, and for those 5 days a week I trained, someone told me what to do. Yeah. I never really had to engage brains. Like, you're doing this, you're doing this, and you just like, yes, fine, let's get on with it. And I've struggled when I'm coming over to golf, where it's just you got to work it out yourself. And I'd quite. You've
like always talked about drill culture of like, I just want something that I can go away and practice, that I have to do to get better. Yeah. But the difference is if you're playing rugby, you don't just to practice for to get better as a team of rugby players. You don't just all go out and play 15 on 15 till your hands bleed. Yeah, I like naturally drills. Get better. You'll practice line-outs, you'll practice rucking, you'll practice scrums, set pieces, kicking. There's all of that stuff, isn't there, where you can just... Which was dictated by someone else, which is the bit that I'd quite like someone to say... I've always said this. I'd really like some, a schedule for a week, like 15 minutes of putting on Monday, 40 minutes of hitting golf balls at the range on Tuesday, or whatever it is. And on Monday, when you do your 15 minutes of putting, I want you to do this drill. Yeah. My brain would really react well to that. It's a structure. I know that I can find 15 minutes, or I can find 20 minutes to go do a putting drill. Whereas I know if I turn up for 15 minutes, I'll just try and hole 30 footers for 10 minutes, miss them all, and then think, oh, great, okay, I'm off now. Well, yeah, that's not practicing putting, is it? It's just aimless, empty, but it's the same as going to the range. It's like when you go to the range. Yeah, and I find that to be particularly 98% of people who go to the range are just hitting balls. Yeah. And not even picking a target. It's just like, I'm just going to hit balls. And it does nothing. It really does nothing other than just get reps.
Well, I feel like spoiler alert, I think I'm really good on the range. I can get into a really, because ball, and you can just hit shots that you want to hit, and it's all great. But put that into 15-minute intervals between shots, and it just falls apart.
Yeah, I think, so the chap you're seeing tomorrow, he told me he's quite into sort of chaotic practice, i.e., putting you under sort of difficult circumstances that are like more akin to what you'll face out on the golf course than just repping 7-irons off a mat.
Well, in the words of Peter Baelish, chaos is a ladder.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? So the rugby comparison of you've got a coach that can diagnose the situation more effectively because they're objective. It's so hard. I honestly cannot objectively assess my own game. I find that really hard.
Well, you found out you've got an amazing short game.
I suppose it's a bit confronting when you look at it and you say, "Oh, I'm actually quite good with my irons," but then I missed a ton of irons shots in the last few rounds where I've kept stats, and I tell myself I can't chip, and I got up and down quite a few times. So I think being objective over how you assess your game, that's a challenge. Being able to effectively practice and do drills, that's really much harder to implement in golf. And
you've played a bit of golf recently, haven't you? You've been trying to play a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I want to play a lot this year, like a huge amount. And
try and do so constructively. All the
trying to. It's not really like 9 holes on temporaries. I don't think the stats are going to do a huge amount for me there. Foursomes, which again is like a good chunk of golf is played foursomes. Like probably, I'd say 1 in 4 rounds is probably alternate shot. I knew that'd get you. I knew that'd get you.
He just got you hit, I hit.
Yeah. So at least a quarter of it is you hit, I hit. It's difficult to keep your stats, but I think you just got to keep sort of persevering with this stuff. I've never found a way of practicing effectively, really.
No. Well, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Efficiency in practice, and yeah, we've got a few more pods in the pipeline that are ready to come out. We should get Mr. Nodes back from America, the PGA show next week, so we can record the tour pod. And once the tour pod is out, the ancillary pods, which we're going to do around the America trip, are going to come out. So the feast is coming. The famine has been, and the feast is coming. So for those of you that like to keep your eyes and ears peeled, please continue to do so. And any passing words, my friend?
None really.
No?
No, other than adios.
Well, I'm going to let you hold that.
How do you rate the acoustics in here?
I think it's a little bit echoey right now.
Do you?
But the more stuff we put in, I think it's going to be okay.
Can you put those egg cartons on the walls?
No, I don't want to do that. You can get some good looking ones, but they're very abstract. And since we're in a pine shed, I would think that would look a bit dodgy. But we'll find out how the acoustics are once we edit the pod. But signing off from our very first podcast.
In the office.
Have we got a name for it?
No, we'll have to while away on that one.
We could put it on a poll on Instagram. Name the office. The Biscuit Tin. Yeah. Until next time.
Adios.
Watch this.